So hello and welcome to another Flower Light Mystery School.
Hello, hello.
Charlotte.
It's me.
And Christine.
Hello.
So yeah, we were back from our Egyptian journey in May.
That's right.
Charlotte wasn't there with us. But
unfortunately.
Christine
but
was there.
Definitely there energetically.
Yes.
But you were there.
I was there physically in the 50 Celsius, whatever.
So yeah, powerful journey as
Yeah.
usual. I suppose I just wanted to talk really about, the mystery school itself, and probably the main focus of the mystery school, and what the main focus of the students, initiates, whatever you want to call them, was, So, to put it kind of concisely, the focus of the mystery school and the mystery school initiate on their journey was to learn to die while still alive. And so all the information that you see on the walls in the temples, the geometric and mathematical construction, that because the information is also encoded in the geometry, as we know, and in the numbers, the ratios.
In the structure.
In the actual structure of the temples, yeah. The construction, the unit of measurement. So, like the canon of proportions, for example, in the human body.
Yeah.
So, there would
Golden
be a canon
ratio.
of proportions for the temple.
Yeah.
As well,
Yeah, how it would be placed. Or
Yeah.
created.
So, I've mentioned before in podcasts how the book of Coming Forth by Light is the instructions on learning to die while alive. And each temple, each pyramid, each site, for example, contains part and whole at the same time because it's holographic.
Yeah.
So while one temple will contain part of the information, at the same time it contains the whole, So when you move through all the temples, all the sites, all the pyramids, you have, effectively read the book, if you like, even though it's not a physical book.
Yeah.
Well, you absorbed the energetic book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The information.
Yeah. Learning to die while alive was the goal of the initiate. And to know beyond any shadow of a doubt that you are immortal and eternal. And the only way to know that is by direct experience. So, the mystery school initiates would have done this purposely, if you like, It was the focus of their journey. It was the focus of their of their mind, of their meditations, but there's a modern version of that, which is a death experience, or a near death. People say a near death experience.
Yeah.
But you call it a death experience.
It's a death experience, yeah. Now, what is death? That's another thing, because death is the one thing that people fear, of course, isn't it?
Yes.
Back and behind of every fear that you have.
The ultimate fear.
Well, it's the ultimate fear that people get manipulated by.
Yeah, absolutely. And back of behind of every fear that you have is the fear of death.
Because
it's the fear of your own... Yeah. It's the fear of your own non-existence. We can't imagine what not being
human
is like, And the closest we can come to it is when we sleep.
Yeah.
And sleep was known as the small death, or the little death, And so the initiate on their journey actually would focus on one day in their life, Because one day in your life is, you see, it's holographic, as I said. So one day in your life symbolizes the entirety of your lifetime. So in the morning, when you get up, you're young.
Yeah.
Midday, you're a teenager. In the evening, you're in your 40s, 50s,
Yeah.
and late at night, when you're just about to go to bed, and you're tired, you're in your old age. So, as an initiate, you would be aware that movement through that cycle every day. So, it would be foremost in your mind. You know, it was a very different mindset, a very different consciousness.
The way they viewed the world and how
Absolutely,
they were.
yeah. It's almost like people today are so far, not everybody obviously, but you know, people who aren't actively on the journey, would be so far removed from understanding that level of consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, because most people are embedded in the material world.
Yeah, and what's the modern life like?
Whereas
it's like programming or cults, you know, so that so everything in the as you would say the 3D now for the last maybe 100 years is to extract people further and further away of why they're really here and what they really are. So they're trapped in this kind of loop of
the karmic cycle more.
It just and also what you were saying before reminded me of the riddle of the Sphinx. You know, what are you? And it's man at the different ages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Because what was the riddle of the Sphinx again? What was the riddle that you had to say to the Sphinx as a mystery school initiate?
It was something about what crawls on four.
That's it. I knew you would remember it.
Walks on two and ends up on three or something like that. Legs.
And
it crawls on four.
Crawls on four.
It's a human being anyway. I forget the exact thing.
But it was basically at the different stages of their life, so it was correlating to exactly what you were saying.
Good point. Yeah.
The world's a stage. And men are really players.
Yeah.
That's Shakespeare.
And when he's older,
Shakespeare knew that stuff too.
Yeah, of course he did. Shakespeare.
If you know that speech from
all the world's a stage, absolutely.
I think.
So the modern version, as I said, you know, for want of a better way of saying it, the modern version of the mystery school initiate going on the journey of learning to die while alive. The modern version of that is somebody who goes through a death or near death, as they say, experience.
Yes.
And that can happen when somebody is in an accident, when they're sick. You know, somebody who has a heart attack. I mean, there's many people who've had
many different ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the one common denominator between all the people who've had a death experience is that they never come back the same.
Yeah.
Because once you've had that experience, you know.
Yeah, no one can ever tell you before you know.
You know. And everybody can tell you, oh, well, that was just your imagination, or that was this, or that was that. But the person knows. Yeah. And the difference between knowing and believing, when you say you believe something, it means you do not have direct experience of it. So if I was to say I believe breaking a bone is painful, that's because I've never experienced it. If I had broken a bone, I would say I know breaking a bone is painful. Do you see the point I'm making?
No, I know. Yeah, I know.
So
what you mean.
So if somebody is saying to you, I believe that something is like childbirth is painful, then you can know that they have not had a child.
Yeah, exactly.
Because somebody who's had a child will say, childbirth is painful, I know. You know? So there's a huge difference between knowing and believing. Yeah. And the difference is direct experience.
Even the etymology of like believe, you I don't know, something about it, like be, and then you have the eve, believe.
You also have
it's
lie.
like off you, it's like
you have a lie in the middle of it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I know.
But, yeah. But so why is that important? Okay, so because the person knows, and that's the key, you know, that's the key word. They know that they are eternal.
Yes.
That consciousness exists after what we call death.
Because they've experienced it.
They've experienced it. And
they remember
that
they experienced it. Because that's the key, right?
Yes. And that was the key to the mystery school initiate as well, was to die, you know, to go through that transition we call death, and to come back into the same body. And what they do when they come back is they bring back information with them. But also what they do is if you can visualize, they hold a portal, if you like, between what we would call life and death. So they can hold that open. You know, they're almost like a conduit or a channel to, because they have been there and come back, they can hold that portal open.
Yeah, and
So,
for others to see who haven't been.
yes. And so anybody who has had a death experience, they always have very profound knowledge to impart to others. Whether others are capable of hearing, a lot of people don't believe.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's because they haven't experienced it themselves.
Yeah.
So, and as Christine, you mentioned there just a few minutes ago, that fear is, you know, if you, and I suppose for a lot of people that's very hard to imagine even, you know. But if you're fearless, there's no way of manipulating you. You can't manipulate somebody that's completely fearless, you know. How are you going to, you know, like, for example, if somebody knows they are eternal, they're immortal, and that what we call death is not the end of anything. It's a continuation of consciousness. Because while your body will cease to exist, nobody is denying that. People's physical form ceases to exist. But your consciousness is eternal. And this is what all ancient traditions have imparted and have tried to impart down through the ages. So it's important because if you think about the time we're in and what's happened over the past 2 years, if, just imagine if everybody knew that they were eternal and they were immortal, and this transition that they were going to go through at some point that we call death was not the end, but just a dropping away of the physical form and a return to the pure energy that they always are, always were, then none of this would have happened.
No manipulation.
And the interesting thing about, you know, we talked earlier, or I mentioned earlier, about most people are in the material world, you know, and we could say that the fall of man, as it's spoken about, you know, is the fall into that material world, but it's the fall into the ego.
Yes.
And it's the ego that exists in time and in the material world.
And when you say ego, you mean like who you are?
Your male energy, your identity of Charlotte Cleary or Christine. That's my ego.
Your ego is kind of somebody that your ego sees itself as separate from everything else.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm separate from you, you're separate from me. The trees are separate from us. The animals are separate again. Then, you know, the rivers, the lakes, you know, they see everything as categorized and linearized, you know?
Separate, yeah.
And the ego is self-centered, and I don't mean selfish, you know, greedy. I mean self-centered. In other words, its whole viewpoint comes from a center of self. So everything is related back to the self. I own this. This is my... Now, we all say that, but...
to like act from that.
It's almost like they see things as their everything is their property, you know.
It's kind of like the difference. The Native Americans say like walk softly on the earth and leave few footprints, because they identify themselves as part of the earth, the great mother, the great they're just like here for a sojourn, right? But 3D in a more Western version is, you know, symbolized by I can own everything, I can buy everything, it's property, whatever. But in reality, to me, it's a holographic world. We create everything ourselves, and it's a futile thing to think you can own something because you only have your lifespan that you have right now. So,
And that's the ego.
Yeah.
The ego is...
It's a trap.
A level of consciousness by which you... I suppose the defining thing about the ego is it sees itself separate from everything else.
Yes, exactly.
So I am separate from you. I am, you know.
Yeah.
And that we can call the fall.
Yeah.
You know, the fall of man. And the reason it's called the fall of man is it because it's not to do with men, but it's to do with our male energy.
Yes.
So it was our male energy that fell into this lower state of consciousness that we would now say, you know, the material world, where people are embedded in the material world, in consumerism,
Yes.
in, you know, I want a bigger house, a bigger car, a bigger, you know, the people are focused on the material world.
Yeah.
And not like when
And
you
they
have,
value themselves by how much they have.
yeah, they're the
In the
material
material
success, but also the energy of now for me is to be like the weighing of the heart, the balancing of the male and the female energy, to be in a harmonic, to be able to experience the higher frequencies. So that's why it's really important to understand that the ego is, to me, a trap. That's kind of like it's over with now. Anyway, that's my point.
Yeah. And so the fall of man is, as I said, it's the fall of the male energy of
Yes.
everybody, whether you're a woman or a man. It's the fall of your male energy into that ego material world. So your feminine energy, your subconscious energy, never forgot who it was. It knows it's the creator. It knows it's infinite and eternal. And your feminine is your creative, your dreaming, your it's that part of you. If you remember earlier, I said somebody who has a death experience, they almost become a conduit, a channel to keep that portal open like a bridge. You know, they've created a bridge or between. And I'm saying between what's on the other side of death and life, but we could also compare that to a portal between the subconscious, the feminine, and the male, the fallen male. You know.
Yeah.
So, I had, and I suppose people who've listened to these, you know, podcasts before, they'll know that what brought me to Egypt and to creating the mystery school in Egypt and to doing what I do, bringing the journeys, teaching the flower of life, the geometry. What brought me to that was a death experience, a motorbike accident. And in that accident I saw how there were two, and I'm going to use the word nets, okay, but what I mean is two levels of consciousness, if you like, two realities. That's not quite the right description of what I'm trying to say, but I saw how there were, I think you know, like levels of consciousness, I think maybe the best way to say it. So what I experienced in that motorbike accident showed me that there were souls incarnate, and there's two levels of consciousness in which they'll incarnate. So they'll incarnate into the fallen state, as we said, you know, engrossed in the material world and the ego, or they will incarnate in the higher consciousness, which is where that they don't fall into that male energy. So you could, just for purposes of description, you could call one a dark net and one a light net. So if I'm sure you can surmise that the reality we would be in if we were very embedded in the material world is what you might say is the dark net. And that's also been described as, you know, a trap for souls or prison for souls. I'm talking about in the mystery schools, this is the way it will be described. And as Christine said earlier, it's where you go on the wheel of incarnation. So the karmic build-up, the karmic ties that you create in that material fallen state creates almost a gravitational pull that keeps you incarnating back into that material world and into that lower level of consciousness. So, you know, there always has to be a certain amount of people in physical form, in physical incarnation, in the fallen reality, if you like, but who are not fallen themselves. You know what I mean?
So higher consciousness
There have to be people
souls
who are all
in the like matrix.
yes.
So it's not lost.
So they can rise
Yes.
up again.
So basically
probably.
what I'm saying is there always has to be a certain amount of people in physical incarnation on the earth, in the material world, who did not fall, their consciousness didn't fall into the ego and the material. They are remained connected to knowing they are eternal consciousness, creator consciousness, even though they're in physical form and you can meet them in a shop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you mean
They
like
look like us.
that they have the possibility to rise up? Is that why they need to be there, or?
I suppose another way of saying it is they are already ascended.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you know, the story of Jesus. He came in physical form. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah, I understand.
You understand what I mean?
So
But
they came and they returned.
He was fully aware of his eternal divine nature.
But they're still a human being. Or still,
Absolutely,
or
he came in
energy.
physical form
Yeah.
to tell others. So in other words, I don't want to say anything that might offend anybody, but you could compare Jesus to somebody who had a death experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they have gone through the transition of death.
Yeah.
They have experienced their divine nature, creator consciousness. They understand that everything is one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they come back with that knowledge.
And share it again.
And so while they can live in the material world, they're not of the material world.
I understand that.
So it doesn't influence them.
Yeah. And so what I'm trying to say is there always has to be
People.
a certain number of those people on the planet.
Is that number 144?
144,000, yeah.
Like all the stones in the pyramid?
Yes.
The
So
casing stones.
in the
Casing
Great
stones.
Pyramid,
I was
there's
going to call them the capstones, but it's casing stones.
in the Great Pyramid, there's yes, exactly 144,000 casing stones. And the Great Pyramid was called by different names, you know. And one of the ancient names, or more ancient names for the Great Pyramid, was Thoth, which means the light. And so the 144,000 casing stones represents a number or an amount of ascended beings in material, physical form. And there always has to be that number. And so there's a casing stone for each one of those people. So I'm also going to call those people witnesses. Okay? So I'm going to say that there's also 144,000 witnesses. And 144,000 also is to do with the speed of light. And it's also to do with a frequency or a level of consciousness, if you like. And it's also the code or the key, numerically speaking, which is 9. So 144 is 9, you know. But that's a bigger thing to get into for now. But so why am I saying witnesses? Okay. So this brings me to the dark net, yeah, that I talked about, where souls get trapped.
That's it.
And
in this cycle.
go ahead, sorry, Charlie.
I was just going to ask, and by the dark net, or do you mean by this physical reality that we are experiencing?
I'm going to say the
together?
dark net, lower consciousness.
Lower consciousness. Okay.
So I'll say what lower consciousness is. Okay, so when people are in lower consciousness, they're in very low emotion and energy. So they would be people who are very angry, people who are maybe very depressed, people
anxious.
with mental illnesses, people with people who are having like serious addiction problems, people who are, and through no fault of their own. I'm not saying this is the whole thing. There is no fault.
No.
There is nothing is anybody's fault. This is what this dark net is, you know. It's a lower consciousness, And in that lower energy, that's the emotions you're going to experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's isolation. Don't forget the ego sees itself as separate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it has cut itself off
Yeah.
from its higher consciousness. That's why it's fallen.
Mm-hmm.
So in that lower consciousness grid or net, those people will feel lost, lonely, isolated, frustrated, depressed, angry,
Powerless.
often not seeing any point in life.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like almost cutting off your oxygen supply.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what we do when we go into that fallen state.
Mm.
It's like cutting off your oxygen, because the eternal energy that you are is dimmed down so much in that material lower energy.
Mm-hmm.
You've cut yourself off
Mm-hmm.
from the supply, you know, and it's almost like you are dying. Your physical body is dying.
Suffocating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So another way I'm going to describe it quickly is if everything begins as a thought, an idea, in that eternal field of creator consciousness energy, intelligent energy,
Mm-hmm.
everything begins in as a thought form, as an idea, and then it becomes what we would say physically manifest. Yeah. In a world where you can touch it, feel
Mm-hmm.
it, see it. So if you consider when it comes into that physical manifestation, it only has a limited amount of time, and then it will disappear. It'll die, what we call die.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it do? It just returns back to the thought, the idea.
Mm-hmm.
It just made itself manifest in that lower dimensional energy for a period of time. But its true eternal form was always in the higher energy, in the higher consciousness, in creator consciousness. But when you fall so far into that material, you completely forget who you are.
Yeah.
You totally forget who you are.
Yeah.
You forget that that's why I'm saying people who go through the death experience come back completely changed, because they know who they are now.
Mm.
And that's what the mystery school initiate and mystery schools was all about.
Mm.
To make sure that there was always an amount, 144,000 on the earth, that knew they were eternal and they were immortal.
Yeah.
Because, as I mentioned, in the material realm and in that lower energy net, souls incarnate and become trapped in, as I mentioned, they create karmic ties with people and create karma.
Mm-hmm.
And that in turn, karma actually is like gravity. It creates a gravitational pull for the soul to keep coming back.
Yeah.
To keep balancing, because the drive is always towards perfect balance. So the soul will keep coming back to try and balance
Mm-hmm.
the karma that it has created in the previous life.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Would
all
you-
of that is it. Sorry.
I was just saying, would you say that, like, when you're coming back to clear karma and for your next life, you're setting up the family and the people that will all equate
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
your soul's growth
Yeah.
to alleviate that karma?
Yes. Yeah. Good point. Because each lifetime, remember I compared your whole lifetime to one day.
Mm.
So if you can imagine each lifetime as a day, okay? So over a week you've had 7 lives, you know?
Yeah.
2 weeks you've had 14,
Mm-hmm.
and on and on. And it's a cycle.
Yeah.
Okay? So when you've reached a certain amount of lives that you've completed, and that's unique for each individual, there's no set, you know, it's not like you have to have a certain amount of lives, numerically speaking, I mean.
Yeah.
But when you have gained enough experience that you can free yourself from that gravitational pull, you know, of karma that keeps bringing you into the lower consciousness net, you know. So that is what the mystery school is about. All the information is to be continually fed through those that are here and know it. The ones, as I mentioned before, I'm calling witnesses. So why am I calling them witnesses? So they play a few different roles, okay? They play the role of being here to hold the portal open between the higher consciousness and the lower consciousness, or as we called it, the dark net and the light net, okay? And they're also here as wisdom keepers and wisdom providers. In other words, they're there to give of their knowledge to others.
Yeah.
And they're there, thirdly, as witnesses. Okay? So, in the fallen net, in the dark net, the theme of that dark net is manipulation and control. So the whole net and everybody in it is under manipulation and they're under control and they're under control of those who want to keep them there.
Yeah.
And the method they use to keep people under control is fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the soul has to battle against the fear. It has to learn all about fear, and it has to learn all about how to get out of the karmic cycle as well. That's the journey of the Mystery School initiate, if you like.
And would I just say, is that also related to the Great Year, like the whole the cosmic cycles in terms of the Kali Yuga, the Golden Age?
But when you're out of, you see, cosmic cycles and all of those things only exist in 3D time.
Yes.
When you're outside of what we call 3D time, time doesn't exist at all.
So that's great. So then
there is
the
no
things
time
that we think of as how it's going to be are us thinking of it in a 3D way to understand something that doesn't apply when you're in a higher dimension. We're trying to
understand infinite concepts
Yeah.
with a finite mind.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's the bridge.
Yeah.
Infinity and finite.
Yes.
So we need to create a bridge between the two, you know. So I'm saying also that those 144,000 manifest in the fallen energy grid, energy net, while still being connected to the higher energy net for the purpose of being witnesses, okay? So what I'm saying is those who are controlling this fallen net, okay, they are people. They appear to be people. They take physical form. And they are born into certain families, as we all know.
Yeah,
there are certain families who are controlling this fallen net, this reality, as we call it. And they're born into certain families. They're born in certain locations, countries all around the world. Yeah?
Yeah.
And each one of the witnesses, each one of the 144,000 witnesses are also born into different families, different locations, different places all around the world. But each one of these witnesses is placed in such a way that they will know these controllers, these, they're known by different names anyway, but the controllers of this reality. They will know them because they will have known them growing up. Yeah. They will have known them as children. They will probably have gone to school with them. They will maybe have been friends with them.
Yeah.
And then those people go on to become presidents of countries, to become
heads of banks,
large CEOs of different industries, banking, media, Hollywood. They become stars. They become famous actresses and actors. They become musicians, famous singers, bands. You know, but each one of these witnesses has come here with the purpose also of observing them. So they're here. I mentioned the different reasons they're here. There's 3 different reasons why these 144 are here. And in relation to being the witness, they're here to observe these people who are going to grow up and become presidents, bankers, famous people. Why? Because those are the people who are influencing the masses.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are influencing the people. They're the ones that are putting them in control.
Yeah.
And so we are here as witnesses to observe their actions, to observe their deeds, and to identify them. So as witnesses, we see who they are beyond their physical form.
Wow.
We see what they are energetically. We see what they are.
We're talking like archonic energy and things like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we see that they are here to keep souls in that lower consciousness, in that dark net.
Yeah.
And we're here to, I suppose you could say, retrieve those souls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there's many ways that people since 2020 have taken back their power, if you like, all over the world. And there's no right way and there's no wrong way. People are going out, for example, protesting, doing all sorts of different things. But all of those things will culminate in the same thing at the end, which is the one and only thing that any person needs to do. And all of this dark energy falls away. And that is raise your consciousness.
Yes. Raise your frequency.
When you raise your vibration, you ascend above and beyond that dark net. I'm just going to give an example of the dark net and how you know if you're there, okay?
Yeah.
If you're living in anxiety and depression and anger, if fear rules an awful lot of your decisions, or all of them, if you live in fear, if you're plugged into the media and you're listening to every fear story that comes across, and you're buying into it and you're living in fear and you're living in fear of a shortage of this and a shortage of that, and maybe this is going to happen and maybe that's going to happen, and all of these fear things, then you are in that dark net.
Yeah.
If you're experiencing emotions like freedom, love, compassion, creativity, oneness, interconnectedness, and if you're feeling excited, joyful, and seeing new potentials and possibilities, then you are in that higher consciousness net.
Yeah.
So that's just an example of how you would know.
But what if you're if you feel like that one day, but then the next day you feel trapped?
That's your bridge.
Yeah.
That's your bridge. So what you're doing is you're crossing. So one day you're in the higher net. Yeah. And then the next day you feel you're in the lower one. Okay. So you're going to cross back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Like
till
a swinging rope
exactly,
bridge.
exactly. And this goes through lifetimes as well, not just, remember I said a day is a lifetime.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so the emotions you go through in one day is the lessons of your entire lifetime. And lifetimes.
So even a whole
you
life
keep going back and forth over that bridge.
Yeah.
Into the higher net, back into the lower net. And you will keep doing that until you eventually
stabilize, right?
Stay in the higher net.
Well, you make your choice.
But is that to ascend?
Well, you don't make a choice because you've never left, really. You're always there. You can't leave yourself.
But like you're always a bridge, right? You can never not be a bridge.
You are everything.
Yeah.
And
you exist everywhere.
You can never not be the light.
Exactly. You can never not be yourself. You can't walk away from yourself, can you?
No.
You know what I mean? You can never not be yourself. So, you see, it's not that we actually fell. We forgot.
We forgot, yeah.
And it's not that there's two nets. There's levels of consciousness. That's what it is. And when you are in all those lower emotions, you're in that lower consciousness.
Yeah.
And how do you raise your vibration? You get out of all those lower emotions. Stop thinking that the answers to your questions and the resolutions to your problems are in the material world.
Exactly.
And outside of yourself.
Yeah. They're not beyond
The
you.
control mechanism works because of the ego.
Mm-hmm.
because the ego thinks it's separate and everything else is outside of itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the control mechanism works.
Yeah.
But when you understand that you are everything, everywhere, all at the same now,
Yeah.
because there is no time,
That's it.
then there's no sense in any sorts of ownership or wanting to own any one particular part of it, because it's all you anyway,
That's
Yes.
it.
you know?
Yeah.
So, in order to, and the word is ascend, out of that dark
Vibration.
net, that dark net, is to raise the consciousness. And that's what is happening, and, you know, needs to continue forward happening globally, you know, is literally, if everybody raised their consciousness out of that lower net, that lower energy and those lower energies, there would be a whole new reality manifest, because we are the creators of reality, of the reality that we experience. We're the thinkers of the thoughts, and we're the dreamers of the dreams.
Yeah.
And our cat has just jumped on the table here.
Yeah.
I thought I heard some.
Our cat has just joined the podcast.
He was like, that, I need to say something about that.
So the Sekhmet energy, the
Yes, Sekhmet.
energy,
Absolutely.
the power energy of the feminine is coming in.
Yeah.
Even though it's a masculine cat, there's the balance.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So, yeah, so that's where we're moving forward to now, you know, in this time, you know.
Well, because there's such a big shift of like unrest or unease. I think that people are confronting their fears.
Because that which has been hidden
Yeah,
It's
it's
being
being
real.
revealed.
is now been revealed.
Mm-hmm.
That's apocalypse,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the revealing.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I mentioned that we can see past their physical form, those that are controlling this,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
those that are controlling people through fear and keeping them in this lower vibration,
Mm-hmm.
have been hidden up to now.
Yeah.
We, the 144, can see them,
Yes.
because I told you we're the witnesses.
That's it.
We've been placed strategically all over the earth, and we have been placed so that we are their friends. We went to school with them.
Mm-hmm.
We know them well. They're famous people today.
Mm.
Famous people today. Those that are controlling this reality and oppressing people with fear.
Mm-hmm.
They're well-known people. Okay, a lot of them aren't well-known. They're in the background and they're controlling the well-known people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they're people in the media,
Mm-hmm.
as I just mentioned,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But they once were children. They weren't always famous.
Yeah.
They weren't always presidents.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't always large CEOs of large industry companies, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They were once children who had friends and played on the street and played, you know.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is the 144,000 witnesses were placed in such a proximity to these people that they would know them from childhood up till they became famous. So that they would know that these people have turned to the dark side. They may not have always been that way
No.
when they were younger.
Yeah.
But at some point they've agreed
Yeah.
to contract and become a famous person and
The old selling of the soul.
influence people in a negative way, even though they may look very nice.
Mm-hmm.
On
You
the
know,
exterior.
they may look great, you know, but their purpose is to influence you in a negative way, to keep you in that low vibration. Through music, through movies, through media, through everything.
Does
Through all the agendas.
Does that mean like every musician, famous person, actor?
No.
No.
Because yeah, that's what I would think. That I wouldn't.
No.
Not everyone, but the
But you see,
the
as
big
you're,
ones.
you see, this is an interactive thing.
Mm-hmm.
As your consciousness rises,
Mm-hmm.
you will then start to tune into the frequency of the higher music and the higher philosophies
Arts and
Mhm.
things.
and the
like
higher arts.
That are all mixed in there because it is.
Yes, what we would have in
Arts
the darknet
Mm-hmm.
would be all that higher music, higher philosophy, higher art, higher in its fallen state, if you like. Did you ever watch or ever see rather a moto Dr. Emoto, who
Mm-hmm.
did these experiments on water.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that in some water he put labels on water with the energy of like, I hate you,
Mm-hmm.
I want to kill you, and then other water with labels that said, I love you, I'm so grateful, you are so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
Froze it.
when you froze it and looked at the icicles under microscope,
Mm-hmm.
you saw that the one that had love and appreciation and gratitude was perfectly geometrical, like, you know, a snowflake.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the water that had I hate you and all of this was just horrible sludge,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, the
So-
crystals couldn't form into like a harmonic pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
A geometric.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you did that with music as well.
absolutely,
With
because
that classical.
it's all
balanced
encoded
music.
in the geometry. That's why the flower of life geometry is, you know, you could also say that the flower of life geometry is the creator's thoughts
Yeah.
Mm.
for the blueprint. So the reality, the higher reality exists in that form always.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes into its fallen state, as the more and more it falls,
Or
the
corrupts
less
itself.
perfect, the less
Yeah.
of its pure form it becomes.
Yeah.
The more into the material and physical form
Mm.
it comes. So so it's a point, and it's a very profound point
Yes.
for this time, that the 144,000 are here, as I mentioned, as witnesses, as to observe, but to record, to
Mm.
record the deeds, so that each witness can look at one, not necessarily look, but metaphorically look at one of these controllers of the dark net
Mhm.
and say, I know you, I know who you are,
Yeah.
I know what you've done, and I know what you're still doing.
Mhm.
I knew you before you did what you did. I know your deeds. I know what you do in secrecy. I know what your currency is. I know it's not land, it's not money, it's not property. Your currency is children.
Yeah.
And I know you. And I have recorded your deeds. And those deeds are known. You didn't get away with anything.
Right. Exactly.
Your deeds are known, and they have been put into the energy field or the Akashic field
Yeah. I was just going to ask you
for
about
all of the others to know.
Mm.
that. Yeah.
So the 144,000 have recorded those deeds,
And they're exposing them.
and they're being placed into the Akashic
Mm.
field for everybody to access,
Mm.
for it to be known to everybody.
So like demasked, and
Yeah.
instantaneously through the crystalline plasma ley lines, telepathy, everyone will know.
And because the truth of what's actually happening
Mm-hmm.
in this time, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying 2020 because I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, and that's when it
Yes.
began.
Yeah. Don't
Mhm.
mention anything else. That's
So,
fine.
this is 2022,
Mm-hmm.
September 2022. So,
It's almost the end of 2022.
Yeah. So, in truth, what's actually happening
Mm-hmm.
is a mass awakening,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Revelation.
and what we're seeing is people. You would be forgiven if people to say it looks worse than ever now.
Yeah.
And it's true. It does look worse than ever now. But you see, before, you couldn't see them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Now you can.
Yeah.
You can see their deeds now.
They
Because
say,
You can
they
see
can't
the-
hide anymore.
You can
Yes.
see the truth of what was being hidden.
They can't hide anymore, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. They
no
can't
matter
hide
how much they
anymore.
try to control the media, like they say, it's darkest before the dawn. So
Exactly.
the jig is up.
And so if you, it looks like it's the worst time. It looks like they're really in control,
Mm.
But in actual fact, that's actually their, they have to put the pressure up because the awakening is so great.
Yeah, they can't. They can't.
So they have
control
to
it.
accelerate their fear,
Propaganda. Yeah.
Yeah.
in order to keep
People.
people asleep,
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
No.
Because it's a universal cosmic cycle. They can't
Absolutely not. And they know that
because
as
it's
well.
already above the vibration of them being able to control it. It's a collapse we're witnessing right now, in my opinion. It's the collapse, which is why I said it's darkest before the dawn, because
and
they just don't know what to do. It's the magician's veil, like the curtain is being pulled back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there of course there's people that won't see it, but that's okay.
Sure.
It's
maybe
not their
they're
time.
not meant.
It's not their
Maybe
time.
they're not meant to see.
But you know, we are the creators of reality. We are the creators of reality. We are the thinkers of the thoughts. And collectively, we are creating by raising our vibration, by ascending out of that dark net, if you like. And we are creating that higher reality experience. And you know, the law of one is that one is all and all is one. And that's what Akhenaten was trying to tell the people. Because, just very briefly, religion was created in such a way, there was always the knowledge of one creator energy.
Yeah.
But it was experienced, that one creator energy manifests in a myriad of different forms. So it manifests as male, female, child. And by the way, that's all there is. There's only male and female. It manifests as male, female,
and child.
And child. I'm just saying child energy. That child is either a male or a female. Yeah. It manifests as every form.
Yeah. All
animals,
of nature.
plants, flowers, all of nature, stars, sky. It's one. Okay. But in the ancient mystery schools, in order to use as a teaching tool, what the 144,000 would do in order to explain the infinite concept of the one creator energy to a fallen consciousness,
Exactly.
which was the mystery school initiate.
Yeah.
They would use symbology. So they would say, they would take a physical form which the fallen consciousness can understand, and they would say the one creator energy has a female form and has a male form. So they would take a female, yeah, like in ancient Egypt, for example,
like
Isis.
a goddess, yeah.
And then they would take, to symbolize the male energy, Osiris, you know. And you can see where I'm going with that. And they kept the knowledge alive, the 144,000 who were the wisdom keepers of the mystery schools. And they kept the knowledge alive to disseminate to the people that these images that we're showing you, like of Isis and Osiris, and all, follow that through to all the images of all religions. These are just our way of symbolically showing you the different qualities of the one creator energy. But over time, the symbols of Isis and Osiris, or Jesus and Mary, came because, okay, I'm not going to get into this because it's too long, but there was an infiltration whereby the information of the one was kept from the people.
And kept into
so
the
they began,
priesthoods, basically.
they began to be told that Osiris was a god, Isis was a goddess, and the knowledge fell, and the people began to believe that instead of Isis just being the feminine aspect of the one creator energy, they started to believe that Isis was a goddess. Osiris was a god. So they started to believe in individual gods and goddesses.
Yes.
And then people started to fight because I believe in this one and you believe in that one.
That's it.
And this is how religion and all of this is created. But the knowledge was always of one creator energy, and that is what Akhenaten and his lineage carried the knowledge of. And it's Akhenaten's lineage that connect, of course, Egypt
to Ireland.
and Ireland with Muirhat and Scota have been buried in Tralee, County Kerry, Glen Scota, which is named after her.
And Men's in the north.
And King Men's in County Tyrone. And the Tara Prince, of course,
Yes.
Tara, who was a lineage of Akhenaten, you know, at the same time, or not Akhenaten, sorry, Tutankhamun.
Yeah.
The Tower Prince. I'm not saying he was Tutankhamun. He was in the lineage. He was at the same time of Tutankhamun, and he was related to Tutankhamun.
Yeah, he was a prince, I'd say. I think, wouldn't it be interesting, because everyone thinks that that's his body in the tomb, but like we have no idea of knowing who they buried in that sarcophagus. Like, so what if the Tara Prince, the young male with the necklace on, and Tara was Tutankhamun, and the guy in the sarcophagus might have been one of his brothers. You know, you can't, just because an archaeologist says we prove this, they prove that there was a body
well,
there.
You know, John Anthony West had a way of talking about that. He used to say, I'm not really that focused on Tutankhamun's laundry list. Because there's the ins and outs of, was it his son, was it his brother, you know. I mean, Akhenaten's brother, Thutmose, disappeared. That's it. When he was only very young. So there is a debate as to whether Tutankhamun is actually Akhenaten's brother and not his son.
Yeah.
But the whole point is to have an open mind. Don't attach to the dogma, right? I totally 100% know that Akhenaten was bringing back, because he trained as a priest before he became the pharaoh.
He was the law of one. He was
the law of one, which is that he wasn't worshipping the sun, he was worshipping the information, which was the light.
No, he wasn't worshipping anything. He
was saying that we are the light. The light is us.
Yes, he was 144,000 to 1 who was fully embodied with the knowledge of Creator, eternal consciousness. Yeah, so there was no worship involved at all. That's fallen consciousness when worship and all this comes into it. It's
but it's good for you to say that, because people, often healers go and they're like Isis and this and that, and it's like it's continuation of that whole. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's where you get the hierarchy.
Yeah.
And that's where you
have an idol rather.
The compartmentalization and the, that's how the energy falls in hierarchical form. So you have one at the top, and then some lower than that, and some lower than that, and some lower than that, and lower than that, and of course that makes the pyramid shape.
Which is the fallen male energy, right?
Well, if you look at the pyramid, the shape, so you think at the top, at the very top of the pyramid, okay, because the pyramid encodes all this information I've just talked about today. And so at the very top, that's the one consciousness we're talking about, the Creator consciousness. That's the very apex of the Great Pyramid. It's one, okay? So the pyramid emanates from a point,
Yeah, the geometry.
And then it comes down and down and down and down. So the very bottom layer of the pyramid is the dark net that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The very apex of the pyramid is the light net. Yeah? Because that apex of the pyramid is a portal.
Yes.
Yeah? Because the pyramid continues on into its energetic state.
Yes.
Yeah? So that apex, the very apex where it disappears for your eye, is
which
a
was
portal.
covered in solid
it's
gold.
It's a portal to the energetic pyramid that exists in pure consciousness, thought form. Yeah. And it's a bridge for the soul to cross between the physical and the pure consciousness. That's why the Great Pyramid is an ascension chamber. Not a burial chamber.
Yeah, not in the least.
So if you think of the very bottom layer of the pyramid, so that bottom layer represents the dark net, as I just said. So if you can imagine the 144,000, those who have, by the way, the noise you're hearing in the background is my cat playing with a box, just to let you know. So if you think of the very apex of the pyramid, that's where the 144,000 would be as the portal, keeping that portal open. So when souls incarnate into the higher net, imagine they incarnate into the apex of the pyramid and they stay in the higher part of the pyramid where it's one, the apex. The lower consciousness, the fallen consciousness, goes right down to the very bottom. Yeah? Now if you were looking to ascend and you were at the very bottom, how would you do it? Would you try to jump to the apex in one go from the very bottom? Or would you go up layer by layer by layer by layer by layer till you get to the very top? That's
the
what
wheel of karma.
Exactly. That's what the Ascension Cycle is. So you incarnate, you go to the very bottom into the dark net.
Yes.
Because we all incarnate into the dark net.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then layer by layer, lifetime by lifetime, we climb higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until we reach that very apex. And then the apex disappears from physical form and goes right back in to energy, pure thought form, creator consciousness, one.
Yeah.
So the one becomes the many. And if you can imagine, divide and conquer is how people are
Manipulated.
Yeah, exactly. So the lower down you go in the pyramid, yeah, there's compartmentalization. So you have one stone beside another stone beside another stone. This all came from one, remember? So right at the very bottom you have one stone beside another stone beside another stone. So I'm comparing those stones in this reality to one group of people, another group of people, another group of, or one religion and another religion and another religion, and one doesn't know what the other is doing, and they're probably fighting each other or in opposition to each other, because the one that becomes many is the hierarchy. And in the fallen state, the key, the tool by which these dark energy beings control the dark net is divide and conquer, and they use fear to do that. So those in that lower dark net have no sight at all of the apex of that pyramid. They can't even see it from where they are.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know it exists.
Their reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They've fallen so far that even the very notion of the fact that this apex, this portal exists, they would laugh at.
Yeah, which is what happens.
They would kill you. It's been
of course.
done through this reality history. People have been killed for saying these things.
Yeah.
In
the public.
Yeah.
In the ancient mystery schools,
Yeah.
that's right. Outside of the mystery school.
Outside of the mystery school.
It was only for people who have ears to hear and eyes to see.
So,
Everybody else, no.
In one of the podcasts we did, we talked about how the knowledge of the one was turned into all different religions, and it was done by the Amun priesthood.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And Akhenaten was the one who tried to tell the people, the Amun priesthood are not working in your favour. They're working to control you.
That's it.
They're using information to control you. They're using the idea of different gods and goddesses and all these gods and goddesses are in opposition to each other. So you have some people following one, other people following the other. There's the birth of religion, and then you get them fighting against each other.
Yes.
So the tool that's used by the controllers is to divide and conquer the people.
And manipulate them.
And they conquer them by fear
Yeah.
and manipulation. Yeah. And all of it is information.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it's done. So the point to this podcast is for the 144,000 all to stand in their power now.
Yeah, you are sovereign human
To
beings.
remember that they are the witnesses. They're placed all over the earth. Different cultures, different races, different ages, different countries. But all one. All one here for one purpose, one mission. And we are redreaming a whole new experience for all who are capable of receiving it.
Yeah.
And so I would say the point of this podcast is to call out to those 144,000, they know who they are. Because I know they're all standing in strategic places all over the earth. And they're all singing their song.
That's it.
And they're all swaying into their movement. And they're all doing it in unison and harmony. And they're creating a frequency which will lift all who are capable of receiving into the higher freedom, sovereignty, love,
unity,
compassion, and knowledge of the one. We are all one.
Yeah.
And they call
and
it...
the symbol of the flower of life was used to show the interconnectedness of the one. The one creates the multiplicity. I am you, you are me, we are one, we are three. We create the multiplicity. The one creates all. And the flower of life starts by, when you're drawing it on your paper, it starts with a dot in the centre of the page. and your everything is already within that dot.
Yeah.
Now take away the dot altogether. Where does the flower life exist? In pure consciousness. The flower of life is the blueprint by which the Creator creates all form and matter. So this is a call for people to remember, because that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
We don't have to do anything.
You just have to remember who you are.
We just have to remember that we've always been there.
That's it.
You can't not be you. You can't not be eternal Creator consciousness. That's what you are.
Well,
You
they
are
say-
everything, everywhere,
All
all
the
at the
time.
same now.
Yeah.
You can't be anything other than that. The notion that you fell is almost like an illusion that you created for yourself. Because you are already there. Remember the pyramid analogy?
Yeah.
Well, the bottom of the pyramid cannot exist without the top. And vice versa.
Yeah, the top count.
So you may be at the bottom, you may feel like you're in that dark net, in those lower energies I described earlier. But the apex is there. And it's only a matter of
Connecting
you
to it.
raising, climbing up the layers until you get into that apex and you are now one. And then you pass through that portal. That's called Ascension. And that's how the Great Pyramid is an Ascension chamber. And contains, encodes all this information. And the Great Pyramid is in itself the book of coming forth by light.
Yes. In physical form.
Yeah. So this call is going out. Not through 3D, but through that higher energy, which is instantaneous. It's quantum entangled.
Yes. Telepathic.
And it's going to 144,000
Through the net.
through the net.
And I say,
The net of light.
connect to the universe, right? Because you sing your song, you reverse in the frequency of the universe. Because you are it.
So it's a call to remember and a call to connect. So I think we wound it up for there. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that's a pretty mighty call.
That's it. It's a mighty call.
Okay, so talk to you all soon. And I hope my cat noises didn't create too much of a disturbance.
No, we've had the cat frequency surrounding us
Yeah,
today.
Sekhmet
while we
is with
record.
us. Sekhmet is with
Sekhmet
us.
is
That's to
definitely with
heal
us,
you.
Yes.
Oh, before I go, actually, as well, I want to mention that I will be doing another Path of the Mystery School Initiate journey to Egypt in November. I'll have the dates on the website. And I will be doing a Flower of Life geometry workshop in Ireland, probably County Meath, venue to be decided, for Samhain or possibly the weekend before. But again, the dates will be on the website.
Great.
So I'll also send out a newsletter. So yeah, talk to you all soon.
Stand in your sovereignty.
Remember.
It's remembering.
Yourselves.
Osiris, put yourself back together.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Lots of love. Bye.